Professional staff. Most people think the FBI is all agents kicking down doors, but the reality is that professional staff make up a huge chunk of the Bureau's workforce. These are the people who never carry a badge or a gun, but keep the whole operation running. You've got intelligence analysts who spend their days digging through data looking for patterns, IT specialists maintaining the networks and databases that agents rely on, linguists translating intercepted communications, and administrative staff handling everything from budgets to personnel records. For someone who wants to work in national security but doesn't want to be a special agent, this is the entry point. The work is steady, the benefits are federal government standard, and you get to say you work for the FBI without ever having to chase anyone down an alley. New agent trainee. You're standing in Quantico, Virginia, staring down 21 weeks of what the FBI calls new agent training. This program doesn't ease you in. Day one starts with fitness tests, background deep dives, and a schedule packed from 6 in the morning until you collapse at night. You'll spend about 800 hours cycling through 4 major areas: academics, case exercises, firearms training, and defensive tactics. The academics part covers federal law, ethics, interviewing techniques, and investigative procedures. You're memorizing case law while also learning to strip and reassemble your Glock in under a minute. The defensive tactics sessions are where you get thrown around learning hand-to-hand combat and arrest techniques. Then there's Hogan's Alley, a fake town where you run through realistic scenarios like bank robberies and kidnappings with actors playing criminals and bystanders, testing whether you can actually apply everything under pressure. Special agent. Your first field assignment won't look like the movies. You'll spend most of your time behind a desk reviewing documents, making phone calls, and filling out forms. When you do interview witnesses, they're often nervous, uncooperative, or they simply don't remember much. You learn to ask the same question 5 different ways, hoping one version clicks. Building a case means connecting dozens of tiny pieces of evidence, most of which lead nowhere. You might spend weeks tracking financial records for a fraud investigation, only to find the suspect already fled the country. The senior agents tell you this is normal, that real investigative work is slow and methodical. If you solve anything in your first 6 months, you're doing better than most. Senior special agent. After about 5 to 7 years in, you're not the new person anymore. You've built expertise in whatever your office cares about most. Maybe it's organized crime, white-collar fraud, or counterterrorism, and now you're the one running investigations instead of just following someone else's lead. You coordinate with other agencies, handle informants yourself, and make the calls on strategy. When a fresh agent joins the squad, they shadow you the same way you once shadowed someone else. You're explaining why certain approaches work, reviewing their reports, and teaching them how to read situations. The cases you catch now are messier and higher stakes, the kind where there's no clear playbook and you have to figure it out as you go. This is where you either thrive or realize fieldwork isn't your long-term path. Supervisory special agent. At some point, usually around the 8 to 10 year mark, you might get promoted to supervisory special agent, and this is where the job fundamentally changes. You're no longer the one kicking down doors or running surveillance. You're managing the people who do. A typical SSA oversees a squad of 10 to 20 agents working different cases, and your day becomes a mix of approving search warrants, allocating resources, and sitting in meetings that seem to multiply on their own. You still carry a badge and gun, and technically you can work cases, but realistically most of your time goes to paperwork and personnel issues. The hardest part for most agents is letting go of fieldwork, because management means you're coordinating investigations instead of living them. Assistant Special Agent. An assistant special agent in charge sits one step below the top of a field office or major investigative program. This person oversees multiple squads at once, maybe 4 or 5 different teams, each handling their own cases, and has to make sure all of them have what they need while staying aligned with bureau priorities. The job is equal parts management and translation. You're constantly bridging the gap between agents in the field who need resources or decisions right now and the executive leadership above you who want updates, justifications, and results. You coordinate when a case gets big enough that it needs people from different squads or even different offices. You also handle the politics, the interagency coordination, and the budget conversations that field agents never see. It's less about working cases yourself and more about making sure dozens of other people can work theirs effectively. Special agent in charge. Running an FBI field office means you're in charge of everything that happens in your region, and these territories can be huge, and some SACs oversee offices covering multiple states. You're managing hundreds of people, special agents, intelligence analysts, support staff, and you're the one making the call on which cases get resources and which ones don't. The job isn't just internal management, though. You spend a lot of time building relationships with local police chiefs, sheriffs, state investigators, anyone whose turf overlaps with yours. When something big goes down in your region, a terrorism case or a major kidnapping, you're the person standing at the press conference explaining what the Bureau is doing about it. You're essentially running a small law enforcement agency that happens to answer to Washington. Assistant Director. At this level, you're no longer chasing suspects or running field offices. You sit in Washington, D.C., and oversee an entire division for the whole Bureau, which means you're managing programs that operate in all 50 states and dozens of countries. Your decisions affect thousands of agents and hundreds of millions in funding. You spend your time setting policy, testifying before Congress when they want answers, and signing off on budgets that can hit $1 billion or more, depending on your division. If something goes sideways in your area, senators will call you directly to explain what happened. The job is political in the sense that you navigate oversight, public scrutiny, and internal bureau bureaucracy constantly, but you're still expected to make operational calls that can define how the FBI works for years. Executive Assistant Director. The Executive Assistant Director sits near the very top of the FBI's command structure, typically overseeing one of the Bureau's major branches like intelligence, criminal, and cyber or national security. You're not managing cases directly at this level. Instead, you're coordinating entire divisions, setting strategic priorities for thousands of agents, and making decisions that affect national policy. A big part of the job is working with other agencies, the CIA, NSA, Homeland Security, because most major threats don't respect organizational boundaries. You're in meetings with the FBI director regularly, advising on resource allocation, emerging threats, and how the Bureau should respond to everything from cyber attacks to terrorism. It's high-level crisis management combined with bureaucratic maneuvering. If something goes wrong on a national scale, you're one of the people who has to explain it to Congress or the White House. Deputy Director. The Deputy Director is the FBI's number 2, and in practice, this person runs the Bureau's day-to-day operations, while the Director handles the political and public-facing stuff. You're managing 35,000 employees across 56 field offices, dealing with budget allocations, personnel decisions, and making sure investigations don't step on each other. The director might be testifying to Congress or meeting the president, but you're the one making sure agents have what they need and cases move forward. You represent the FBI to the White House when the director isn't available, which means you need to handle classified briefings and national security decisions without flinching. This job is also the primary pipeline to becoming director yourself. Most deputy directors either retire from this position or get nominated to the top job when it opens up.